Hello and welcome to Property Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Zalkin. Today I'm thrilled to have Jaime Izurieta-Varea, founder of Storefront Mastery. Jaime has an incredibly unique background and story. Jaime, welcome to the show. Really looking forward to hearing all about yourself and your company.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'm thrilled to be here as well.
So, Jaime, let's dive right in. Tell me your background.
Background. Okay. I'm originally from Ecuador. Uh, we've been living here with my family for 7 years. Been thrilled to find so many people, generous people that have welcomed us with open arms. We were able to take time to study, to learn, to pass board examinations, to get licensed, to do all sorts of things as a family. And so I am a trained architect. I went to school here in Georgia, actually, and I went back home to Ecuador to practice. I practiced there for a while, doing architecture and also doing some economic development projects. And then eventually, one of my bandmates from when I was 15 years old, he decided to become a politician and became the city's mayor. When he became the city's mayor, I came in to work for city government. And as I was working for city government, uh, it was essentially in charge of smart cities. But eventually, what happened is I ended up founding an office that was called the Office of Urban Mechanics, diving into the hood of the local government to see what's wrong and how we can fix it. And that became a thing. That became a thing of how to have small fixes that will have a massive impact in institutions or codes or whatever one of those components or cogs in the city functioning algorithm, let's say. So eventually we moved here, and I got a job in an amazing company that does 3D visualizations of zoning codes. So this for me was magic. My job was to read the codes and put them into the software, and then you just click on a parcel and you get everything you need in order to build. It was amazing. And of course I learned so much about zoning codes and about why zoning codes are so detrimental to cities. And as I was doing that, I had my background as a designer. My family is a small business owner. That we have an independent bookstore. So eventually, they shipped me off to Argentina. This was before I came to the U.S. They shipped me off to Argentina to learn from a guy named Miguel Sal, who was one of the biggest bookshop designers in the whole world. He's done the Waterstones and Feltrinellis, in London and Rome and Singapore, everywhere. Sadly passed away. And so he was teaching about these little details of this is how you create an experiential storefront. This was decades before we started to talk about experiential design. But he was saying very basic little things that would really change the experience in a place. So I learned how to do that. I came back home to Ecuador. We opened the bookstore, not because I say it, but it is the most beautiful bookstore in town. And so it became really known because my aunts have done a fantastic job in building up the brand and everything. So I had this background, right? Architectural design. I went into property redevelopment, historic property, so historic preservation, architecture, design, retail design, and then of course the economic development projects that I had been working on. And I started looking at what will I do? Will I get my architectural license? And I did not. The license I was talking about before was my wife's license. My license, I'm thinking, so do I need an architectural license? And I said, there's a world of opportunities if I get it, but there's also a world of opportunities if I don't get it. And I didn't. And that constraint, I guess, forces people to be creative. I took all those pieces that I just told you about, and I said, so what can I do now? And this started as a very altruistic thing of, I am going to create a beautiful coffee table book of storefronts and how the contribution of these small businesses is making our public spaces better. This was very altruistic, very nice book, kind book. And then I couldn't, because I started a Kickstarter that was a non-starter, and so I couldn't do it. Eventually, it turned into an actual book. So I wrote the book as a guide for small business owners of, this is what a great storefront is, and this is what you need to. It was a great book. It was featured in a few places and got really, really high commentaries from people that I really appreciate and respect. So I was very happy with that, and I think it's a very good, it's good material. It's good material that has served a few people to think of their storefronts in a different way. And that started when I was still employed, and gradually I started moving towards being the full time with the Storefront Mastery. And I resigned from my job 2 years ago, this very month, 2 years ago, and I started. It has been growing, and the whole idea behind Storefront Mastery is how online and big box giants are crushing Main Street businesses, right? For whatever reasons. What I do is I give them the tools, the wisdom, I equip them to be impossible to compete with. They become these amazing experiences. They become these hubs of community. They become these great places to be in, so that whenever, if I am deciding between shopping online or shopping in this great place where I go, they give me coffee, I get a great chat, and I just feel connection with the city and with the community and with the neighborhood and everything. It's very, very hard for big ones to compete with that. So that became the thing of Storefront Mastery. And then I found the whole experience economy concept of, this is what we are doing. We're turning things into experiences. And what are the world's foremost experience creators? Disney, right? Then
Right.
when you are in their downtown USA, it's Main Street USA. It's just fantastic feeling that you get there. And when you're doing that, when they're doing that, they are providing an experience. They are providing entertainment. And so I'm thinking, every business is actually a hospitality business, right? You need to be a host. Everyone that comes through your doors is your guest. What do you do when you're a host, and how you make your guests feel like, right? So the philosophy of Storefront Mastery is, let's pivot businesses. Let's look at the top 20% businesses on Main Streets that are bringing 80% of the, I'm just using the 80-20 rule,
Sure.
top 20% businesses that are bringing 80% of the foot traffic and sales, and prop them up. Help them become the most awesome businesses that they can be. While you're doing this, you're helping the Main Street become the best Main Street it can be. And then, of course, you have your mid-tier businesses that may be doing well, maybe doing all right. They get a big benefit from the whole context elevating. They get a big benefit from the added foot traffic. And so the entire downtown starts to go up. And that is the main thing. We're using tools from the experience economy, using tools from entertainment, location-based entertainment. We're using tools from environmental psychology, using tools from hospitality to bring them into downtowns and elevating the whole experience. Focus on the end users of our products, who are the small business owners, local business owners in downtowns.
I think that sounds incredible. You've said a lot, but I think everything you've said really resonates. I think for a lot of folks in real estate, your customers, are they typically government? Is it small business developers? What does your customer roster look like?
Okay, my typical customer right now will be a Main Street organization, an economic development organization such as business improvement districts, or special improvement districts, as we call them here in New Jersey. I am based in Montclair, New Jersey, by the way. And so it's these local organizations that are managing the place, maybe a DMO, maybe a tourist organization, maybe a chamber of commerce, maybe anything that is related to managing the place. And by the place, I mean the context of what's happening in downtown or Main Street, which is basically the businesses, right? So these are my clients typically. The end users, though, the end users are different people. The end users are the local business owners, because they are the ones that will get all the tools and the knowledge and the wisdom, and they are the ones who will bring their storefronts up, and they are the ones who will contribute to the entire context elevating. So they are the end users. However, the clients themselves, they're the organizations. And now there's a different pool of clients, I guess, which is property owners. And then by this, it could be just someone who owns property, someone who develops property, different mixes of private owners of property. What is my relationship with them? It is very interesting because mostly it's me who learns from them, because they've been doing this for a while and they know better than to call this award-winning architect, which is not me, award-winning architect, to come in and design them something fantastic. They don't do that. They've been collecting scraps and bits of knowledge and nuggets of wisdom through the years, and they can make their sketches for what they want so much better than anyone else can. So the scope of my offer, let's say, for private owners of property is a little bit different. It is more about how their contribution to economic development can elevate the context in which their property exists, and of course elevates the value of the property. My thing is all about adding value in a win-win situation. So how can you add value here so that someone else also sees the value, adds more value, and everything starts, going up in turns as everybody adds value, and it's a win-win situation. So the idea is that you become this contributor to the economic development of the place. You become this contributor, such as an incubator, for example, right? If you curate whoever comes as a tenant to your property, you have the opportunity to work with that tenant. So that tenant elevates the value of their business, and your property, of course, gets elevated, right? And that is a win-win situation. So sometimes it's tricky. It takes a lot of work. Owners don't necessarily want to be so actively involved. It's usually more of a passive income thing. But sometimes they are. And when they are, it's very interesting to see how they forge these great relationships with the tenants, and how the tenants also are inclined to give back, not just to the city, but also to the property. So everything gets elevated. It's pretty cool.
When you approach a new project, I mean, obviously there's not, every project is different. There's not a, one size fits all solution to everything. So when you approach a new project, what are some of the things that are going through your head when you're researching or evaluating, when you're kind of pulling for inspiration and direction and vision? How do you approach that?
I think the main thing that I look for is what is the state of the local economy, right? So, because anything that we do design-wise, or any recommendations that we can have for businesses, will be dependent, number one, on their installed capacity, number two, on the state of their business finances, and number three, on the state of the local economy. So if the local economy is super dynamic, you have an opportunity to open a business and plan ahead and say, okay, this is the pool of people who may be coming into my store. This is what could happen. If your local city or town or Main Street or whatever is not that dynamic, you may be the one in charge of bringing the foot traffic. So it's a completely different situation. So I try to look at the economic context in which maybe the specific district, let's say a downtown, a Main Street, a neighborhood, whatever, is operating in, and then a little bit larger, as in, who is going, if I open a Michelin star restaurant in this little town, who is going to come, right? So if you're, I don't know, you're in Austin, right?
Correct.
So in your case, if you have something outside of Austin, who is going to make the drive, the 20, 25, 40-minute drive from Austin to whatever, where my triple Michelin star restaurant is? who's going to come? Are they going to come from Dallas? Are they going to come from San Antonio? Are they going to come from New Orleans? You know, because that may happen. So I like to look at the larger economic context first and see, because maybe it's not about changing the sign or redesigning the facade. Maybe it's about redesigning different channels and going online and opening an e-commerce store and being able to deliver your goods to anywhere in the nation, so that that activity can pretty much subsidize your business storefront, right? So it's never the same, but the context, the local, the regional economic context is going to influence the entire thing.
When it comes to placemaking and design, are there any trends or innovative things that you've seen recently that really caught your attention, or things that you think will gain in popularity?
So lately I've been switching this every business is a hospitality business thing that I keep saying is relatively new. I bought a book which I really recommend to anyone who is involved in this, which is called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. He's from Cornell University, and the stories he tells in this book are really unreasonable, right? So how they go to excruciating lengths to make people feel fine, nice, included, heard, right, in their restaurants, hotels, whatever. So I'm thinking about what are the right moves, what are the right tools, what are the right levels of involvement that would be needed in downtowns to become unreasonably hospitable. And I'm looking at amusement parks. I'm looking at what they call location-based entertainment, which is if you're walking on, I don't know, whatever amusement park, and you go into one of the rides, right? Thinking of downtown as the amusement park and local businesses, each local business as a ride.
Mm.
It helps to change the perspective of how we use local businesses, how the user uses local businesses, and also helps to frame for them. It helps to frame it in a completely different way. They really start to see the people who come in through the door as their guests. They really start to see themselves as the hosts, and they really start to see the downtown as this gathering area, right? And so I think that as the experience economy becomes more of a not just a trend, but a requirement for businesses that are being the growth of online sales is huge. The growth of online sales will not surpass bricks and mortar in the few coming years, but it will. And as it does, it will make a very, very big dent in their sales, in their on-site sales. And also, there is the consolidation because of the larger economic trends. There is the consolidation of these huge national companies that can open a huge big box convenience store that is able to discount things to the 30, 40, 50, 60%. And you need to make a 20, 25-minute drive to get to them. So that is really, really hard on local businesses, right? Especially since local businesses have their costs are pretty much the same as any other business, but their revenue is much less than very large businesses. So a huge business can get away with a 0.5% revenue, whereas because it's in the millions and millions of dollars, right?
Right.
But a small business, if they have that, it's going to be $250, which is not enough to even pay for rent. So it's hard. It's very hard on them, and they will have to realize that there is a pivot necessary to make very soon. And that pivot, I am betting, it's going to be this experience economy. It's going to be this looking at how we entertain people more than how we sell, I don't know, bottle of Advil to someone,
Right.
right? Because that they can do on online and get it the same day.
Are there common pitfalls or things to totally avoid? When you're consulting with one of your clients, is there something or a few things you might advise against?
Advice against. The number one thing I advise against is to hide yourself. So somebody asked me the opposite question a few days back. So if there is one question, there's one recommendation that I can make, regardless of the type, the level of income, the geographical location, regardless of everything else. What is the one recommendation I can make to business owners? And I had to think it for a while. And then what I came up with is recommendation that I shouldn't have to make. It should be 100% intuitive. I shouldn't have to make it. Clean your storefront. Wipe your storefront glass. Get it sparkly, squeaky clean. Wipe out all the tape remnants and all the old posters and everything. Make it squeaky clean.
So
Why?
obvious, right? But
It's
so many
obvious,
people
but it has
overlook
to
it.
happen.
Yeah.
I still need to say this, which is I shouldn't need to say this, but I still need to say it. So do that, right? And why? Why am I telling them to do this? Because the more uninterrupted views that people have of the inside, the more they can see not just the transparency of the windows, but also the transparency of the business. The business relation with the customers is based, as we move forward in this economy, is based more and more on trust, right? I have to trust you. I have to trust the values that you project so I can come into your store and shop with confidence. We have to be aligned in different ways. This is what shoppers are looking for right now. And so the more transparency you have, not just in your storefront, but the more transparency you show in your business, telling your story, showing your values, and being open, the better, right? So the one thing I say avoid at all costs is hiding yourself, putting all the boxes that you have nowhere else to put in front of your window, or closing down, or no, putting out your lights during the day. Yes, it is bright enough inside that you can go without lights, but you don't want to go without lights because it looks like it's closed. When you have your lights on, when you have your displays with the same energy and with the same dynamics that you have when it's getting darker, then the store will function the same way through the day. So it will look open. So try to stay transparent, try to demonstrate that transparency, and try to invite people to look in. So the recommendation is, or the stay away from is, do not hide, open yourself.
Are there any projects you're working on right now or even on the horizon, that you're extremely excited about? I'd love to hear about one or two projects and why you're excited, and maybe a little bit about the project itself.
I have one that, I do have one that I wasn't expecting, but it just turned out that way. I have a client. It's now it's a main street. It used to be just a volunteer economic development corporation in a town here in New Jersey, and they started calling me to do these projects to help some grants that they were giving to local business owners. So my projects were informing the grants, and the people who received the grants had to follow the recommendations that I gave them, which was nice. We started. We did 1, 2, 3. We've done 9 so far in the course of 2023. Actually, year and a half. Anyway, it just shaped that way without me planning. But now, if you go to one of the prominent corners of this town, you will see 3 shops next to each other that bear the Storefront Mastery seal, let's say. And it's super interesting to see how they are shaping, and even turns a corner, which is nice. It's interesting to see how they are shaping, and the idea is that they didn't have any big interventions, so they didn't require building permits. They did require minor permits, but no big building permits, which was very nice because it could be done in a quicker manner. And it's an entire corner that turns. That is, wow, I made that. And not just because of the wow, I made that, but because of the way that those shops are now integrated with the sidewalk. It's a very inhospitable road, sadly. It's a state highway, so it's a makeshift divided highway, if you know what I mean. It has like 4 lanes from one side, and then these huge concrete jersey barriers, and then 4 lanes on the other side. So it's not the most comfortable place to be. There's not many trees, but as the shops start to change, there is a different dynamic that happens in the entire block. Some shops along the block also are starting to change, not with my recommendations or my advice, but clearly based on what we have done in these other shops. So it's great to see how the impact on the sidewalk changes the way people use the sidewalk. When people are using the sidewalk in a better way, better things happen in cities, right? You start to treat the sidewalk in a different way. If you see your friends outside sitting on a table having pizza and you're walking by, you're less inclined to, I don't know, maybe throw some garbage on the floor because this is your people who are there, and you're feeling within the product, not as much as if you, in the typical placemaking manner, as if you would be part of the design and implementation of the place. That is where when you really achieve appropriation. But in this case, it you become part of the community as the shops become a more integral part of the sidewalk, and that is a great thing to see. The massive impact that it makes in the self confidence of towns is really great to see.
That's incredible. Where do you see Storefront Mastery maybe in 5 or 10 years? What are some of your goals, aspirations? Where do you want to take the company?
Where I want to take the company is, I don't know if no, wait, I do know where I want to take the company. I want to look at different brands that are working in different capacities in cities, not necessarily from the public side, but from the private side. I want to look at how developers see their interactions with public space. I would like to work with larger brands. Right now, we work with small local businesses. Some of these are incredibly creative and have done amazing things with their storefronts and display windows. But it would be great to to scale up a little bit and speak to different brands, not necessarily commercial brands, but private, that are making massive impact on the cities around them, but not necessarily the greatest impact. I'm talking about museums. I'm talking about institutions like libraries or things like that, and also to big developments. Big developments, it's their own money they're working with, so they really have to make it work the most efficient way. And sometimes the most efficient way is not the most efficient way for the triple bottom line, which is your business bottom line, the neighborhood's bottom line, and the community's bottom line. When you have the three working with you, then of course everything, like I said before, everything will be elevated. So sometimes the most efficient way for the business's bottom line is not going to be the triple bottom line most efficient. And this is something I would really really like to work with developers, so that they can see the benefit of opening up their ground floors, can see the benefit of opening up their relationship with the city and the neighborhood around them, and pretty much serve private clients who, one of the main things is that they have they they are more keen to see the actual value of something we do, as it is their own money and it's their skin in the game, as they build something and put something out to rent and put something out to say or for sale, you know and people who buy it or who rent it need to see this and say, oh, yes, this is going to be good for my business, right? So this is something I would like to explore, to look at how the Storefront Mastery philosophy can help private developers in opening up their development, the ground floor of their development more towards the city, and see how we can add value, not just for the development, but also for the city.
Jaime, as we wrap up, are there any final thoughts, anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to share with the audience?
Final thoughts: clean your windows. No, I think the main thing that has shaped my work in the last few months, and I would really like to keep shaping not just the recommendations that I give to my clients, but my personal work, is to really think about that idea of every business being a hospitality business. I have a business which is a consulting business. I do not have a storefront, much less a storefront that's open to the street. So, but my business is also a hospitality business. I need to function building trust. I need to function making everyone who works with me be perfectly happy and content with what we're doing. And I need to make my clients, my guests, my clients perfectly satisfied with the service that we give them, so that they not only become loyal, but they also become ambassadors. And I think as I work with more businesses, that is a great, great, great recommendation. Become a hospitality business and see how people become your ambassadors. And that's good for every business.
Jaime, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show today. I feel like we didn't cover everything, so we'll have to have you back on again soon.
I would
Really
love to.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robert. I would really love to be back. This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.